Comparative anatomy serves as evidence to evolution by comparing structures of different species and finding possible common ancestors. Homologous structures consist of different functions but similar structures. However, vestigial structures are not that important because they act like leftovers from the ancestors when they used it. As opposed to homologous structures, analogous structures consist of similar functions but different structures.
The beginnings of comparative anatomy started when Pierre Boulogne studied skeletal systems similarities between humans and birds. Later, a scientist named Cuvier rejected the previous assumption that all members of the animal kingdom would be placed in a single linear tree, from the simplest form all the way up to humans at the top. Thus, the theory that all members of the animal kingdom have been derived from a common ancestor, or comparative anatomy, was created.
The biggest evidence used in comparative anatomy is the study of homologous structures. As shown in this diagram, the limbs of various vertebrate species are incredibly similar. Common logic would say that these 4 different species that carry out completely different functions, from swimming to flying to walking and grabbing, would have completely different skeletal structures. But because all species evolved from a common ancestor, the skeletal system has only changed slightly to accommodate the different functions. As you can see, all 4 species have a humerus, ulna, radius, carpal, metacarpals, and phalanges.
Teeth in carnivores and herbivores are not as significant as people would think. They both have molars with the same structure but different functions, like the horse grinding tough plants and the wolves grinding tough meat. Canines are present in both carnivores and herbivores, but carnivores need them to rip off the meat, while herbivores don't need them, but they are still present. Also, they both have incisors. This all proves the possibility of a common ancestor between the two.
This image shows how 2 distinctly different animals, one being an aquatic mammal and another being a small bird, have many core similarities. Both have bone-encased brains, similar arm bones, ribs to protect organs, and hind limbs, though the hind limb for the whale is vestigial.
The opposite of homologous structures are analogous structures. Rather than having similar structures and different functions, analogous structures have different structures but the same function. As shown in this diagram, all 4 animals breathe the same air the same way, but the makeup of the respiratory system is much different, especially how the pigeon is the only one with air sacs, making it completely different than the others.
The circulatory system in fish, most reptiles, and mammals and birds are analogous to each other, whereas they all do the same thing, but they are set up differently. Fish have one atrium that collects the blood after returning from the rest of the body, pumped out by the ventricle. Reptiles have a 3-chambered heart that has one ventricle that pumps out blood that returns to 2 separate atriums. Mammals and birds have a 4-chambered heart that have 2 separate groups of one ventricle and one atrium each that are divided through the body.
Another part of comparative anatomy is the presence of vestigial structures, which are structures that serve little to no function today, but once served one in our ancestors. Examples of this are scattered throughout the animal kingdom, like how whales still have tiny useless hind legs left over from their 4-legged walking ancestors. This is also present in snakes that have leftover hind legs too. Humans have multiple examples of vestigial structures, like our wisdom teeth that were once used to help grind up tough, uncooked meat like woolly mammoths, but now they can no longer fit in our mouths that have strength over generations. Many reptiles have a clear 3rd eyelid that can cover their eye when they need to see underwater. In deceased humans, it has been found that the pink, very inner part of our eyes can be pulled out with tweezers, and it fits perfectly over our eyes, showing our relationships to reptiles. Other examples are our tailbones and appendixes that no longer serve a purpose, but once did in our ancestors.
Pictured here is comparative anatomy's connection to evolution. The theory goes that all members of the animal kingdom evolved from one entity, protists. Being that everything diverged from a sole common ancestor, the similarities between species are explained. Just as your child will have a similar anatomy to your own, all animals have some sort of similarity that links them, no matter how distant.